I thought my family had canceled Christmas because of an ice storm, until I saw a photo of all of them smiling around the dinner table at my sister's house, without me. I'm Claire, and what started as a heartbreaking lie turned into the uncovering of a betrayal that went far deeper than I ever imagined. They didn't just leave me out of the holidays, they erased me from my own inheritance, my own history, and I have the receipts. Have you ever felt like your own family treated you like an outsider? What would you do if you found out they'd been hiding more than just holiday plans? Share your thoughts. I'd really love to hear if anyone else has lived through something like this. I sat by the window, holding my favorite snowman mug, steam rising gently from the cocoa inside. Outside, snow dusted the porch railing like powdered sugar, but the streets were clear. The candle I'd lit that morning, a leftover pumpkin scent from fall, flickered weakly on the table. I took a slow sip and opened my phone, not expecting much. One new message blinked at the top of the screen. "Dinner's off. Roads are too icy. Stay warm. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then a third time. I live just 20 minutes from my parents' house. I'd walked to the store yesterday without a problem. Still, I tried to shake off the twinge in my chest. Maybe they were being cautious. Maybe they didn't want Grandma to slip on the driveway. I flipped on a cheesy Hallmark Christmas movie to fill the silence and tried to settle in. The main character was baking gingerbread cookies with a guy who looked like every other love interest in these things. Flannel shirt, perfect smile. I reached for the marshmallows and spooned a few more into my mug. They melted too fast. Last Thanksgiving, I'd cooked all morning, even tried making homemade cranberry sauce. Nobody came. "Car trouble," Mom had said. Emily had posted a yoga retreat selfie that same day. I told myself it wasn't intentional, just bad timing. Families get busy. I scrolled through Instagram, just to kill time. Bright reds, greens, glittering trees, captions filled with joy. Then I saw it. My cousin Jen had posted a boomerang. Wine glasses clinking above a table lit with golden candles. "Best Christmas yet. Emily's house is perfect." My finger froze. I tapped the tag and the full post opened. There they were. Mom, Dad, Emily, my aunts and uncles, even Grandma wearing the red sweater I got her last year. The table was dressed in a velvet runner. Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, the works. Behind them, the window framed a crystal blue sky, not a snowflake or ice patch in sight. I stared, my hand tightening around the mug. My cocoa was already cold. The candle had gone out without me noticing. My phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time a group shot. Everyone smiling under twinkling lights, arms wrapped around each other. I wasn't in any of them, not a single one. I reached for the matches and relit the candle, but the scent was gone. Just smoke. They had lied. The one thing I'd always clung to, that maybe I didn't matter as much, but I still mattered, crumbled. They hadn't forgotten. They hadn't canceled last minute. They'd planned this, deliberately, together, without me. I sat perfectly still, listening to the fake laughter from the TV. My tree blinked in the corner, plastic branches holding 3 ornaments. One of them was from my childhood, paint chipping, a glittery star I made in 3rd grade. I used to think it was special. My voice barely broke a whisper, but it came from somewhere deep. What else have they been lying about? The morning after Christmas always feels like an echo. The lights still twinkle, but dimmer. The living room smells like cold wax and leftover cocoa. I hadn't even touched the sugar cookies I baked 2 days ago, now sealed in a tin I didn't have the heart to open. My tiny tree blinked on stubbornly, as if refusing to admit the holiday was over. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, rinsing out the mug I'd abandoned the night before, when my phone rang. Mom's name lit up the screen. For a second, I stared at it, unsure if I wanted to answer. But curiosity won out. "Hi, honey," she chirped, bright as ever. "Hope you had a quiet little Christmas. We missed you." I didn't say anything right away. I watched a lone marshmallow circle the drain, breaking apart under the faucet. "You missed me?" I asked, voice flat. "Well, of course. It was such a shame the weather didn't cooperate. There wasn't a storm, Mom, I said quietly. Jen posted photos. I saw everything. There was a pause, just long enough to confirm she was thinking up a response. Oh, well, you know how these things come together last minute. Emily decided to host, and we weren't sure who could make it. And honestly, sweetie, you're always so quiet at those things. It makes people uncomfortable. I closed my eyes. There it was. The same soft weapon she'd used for years, smiling while cutting. I remembered last summer when the whole family went up to Lake Crescent for the 4th of July. I only found out when Emily posted a group selfie on a boat, captioned, "Family Tradition." I'd texted her, confused. She said, "Oh no, I thought you were in the group chat. Must have slipped." It didn't slip. It never slipped. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a weather issue. You didn't forget. You chose not to include me." Another silence, this one longer. "You're being dramatic, Claire." I walked to the living room, stepping around a single unwrapped present I'd bought for Emily, a scarf in her favorite color, still in its bag. The cinnamon candle I lit weeks ago sat on the windowsill, half used, wick drowned in wax. "I've been trying, Mom," I said, "for years. I showed up, I cooked, I called, I covered for everyone when things got messy. I missed work to help with Dad's surgery. I held Grandma's hand when she had that fall. And yet somehow I'm always the one left out." "That's not true," she snapped, tone sharper now. "You just don't connect with people. You're too serious. Emily, she knows how to make things feel light, festive." My breath caught. A part of me wanted to hang up. Another part needed to hear it. The truth they never bothered to say outright. "So she's fun, and I'm a problem?" Her voice softened again, a rehearsed kind of softness. "You're just different, Claire, and holidays are hard enough without tension." I felt my hands clench at my sides. My gaze landed on a photo on the bookshelf, me at 16 holding a birthday cake I'd baked myself. Emily wasn't even home that year. She was at a sleepaway camp. But the caption Mom had posted read, "Nothing like celebrating both my girls together." She hadn't even cropped Emily's face in. "I'm not the one causing tension," I whispered. "I've just stopped pretending it isn't there." There was a rustle on the other end. Maybe she was pacing. Or maybe, like always, she didn't know what to say unless someone handed her the script. "You know what?" she said finally. "Call us when you're ready to be reasonable." Click. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. The dishwasher hummed faintly behind me. The house, like the day, felt colder now. Outside, a few kids down the street were building a snowman. Their laughter floated up faintly. I closed the curtain. I wasn't angry. Not yet. What I felt was something quieter, heavier, like mourning a version of my family that had only ever existed in my head. The email arrived on a gray Thursday morning, tucked between a digital coupon for canned soup and a newsletter I never remembered subscribing to. Subject, "Claire, we need to talk. It's about your grandfather." I blinked at the name. Rachel Green. I hadn't thought about her in years. She was a family friend once, the kind of adult who smelled faintly of lemon drops and always wore thick-rimmed glasses with rhinestones at the corners. I remembered she used to do my parents' taxes when I was still in school. Quiet, kind, always quick with a warm laugh. Now she was asking to meet. No context, just a place and time. That Saturday, I bundled into my navy wool coat and took the bus downtown. The cafe Rachel chose was one of those older places tucked between office buildings, with faded leather booths and soft jazz playing from unseen speakers. A small bell jingled above the door as I stepped in, shaking snow from my scarf. Rachel was already seated near the back, nursing a tea and clutching a manila envelope like it might burn her fingers. "Claire," she said, standing halfway before sitting back down, almost nervous. "Thank you for coming." She looked older than I remembered, lines deeper, hair fully silver now, but her eyes were the same, kind, watchful, uncertain. I saw some things online, she said, wrapping her hands around the mug. I didn't want to interfere, but after what happened at Christmas, and with your mother's posts, I just couldn't stay quiet. I sat, heart thudding. What is this about? She took a deep breath, then slid the envelope across the table. Your grandfather, Don, left something for you. Something important. And I believe you never received it. My fingers hesitated at the flap. She nodded gently. Inside, I found copies of account statements, property records, and a typed letter from my grandfather, dated the year he passed. His handwriting was scrawled in the margins, faint notes like, for Claire's school, hold until she's ready. I looked up. Rachel's gaze dropped. Your dad was named trustee, she said quietly. He was supposed to release the funds to you at 25, but he didn't. The words felt thick, slow. I flipped through the statements. The account had been drained in increments. Tuition for a yoga certification program, a down payment on a studio lease. Emily's name appeared repeatedly, next to labels like wellness venture and family investment. I swallowed hard. How is that even possible? Rachel looked ashamed. You remember that document your father had you sign when you were 18? He told you it was for medical decisions, just in case? I nodded. I'd been headed off to college. He'd said every adult should have one. I didn't ask questions. It was a power of attorney, she said. It gave him legal access to your accounts, including the trust. My stomach churned. I remembered Grandpa's voice at my high school graduation, low and proud. I've saved something for you, he'd whispered, to help you chase whatever dream you find. I'd never seen a penny of it. Rachel reached for her tea, her fingers tapping anxiously against the mug. I wanted to speak up sooner, but your father, he asked me to stay quiet, said it was family business. She blinked hard. But this isn't right, and you deserve to know. I stared at the papers, the numbers, the signatures in my father's neat block handwriting. I thought about the student loans I was still paying off, the secondhand laptop I'd used for 5 years, the nights I skipped meals to make rent. They didn't forget me. They repurposed me. They didn't just forget me, I said, my voice barely audible, fingers trembling over the records. They erased me. The rain came down steady that Saturday, tapping the windows in even beats like a second hand on a clock. My apartment smelled of lemon cleaner and paper. The folders were already on the table, 3 of them, stacked neatly and labeled in my handwriting, Mom, Dad, Emily. Beside them, a sealed letter from Sarah Chin rested under a paperweight. I didn't pace. I sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded, heart beating so softly I could almost hear it echo. The last time I stood up to my parents, I was 17. I'd refused to go along with a lie Emily told about skipping school. My parents hadn't yelled, they'd just gone quiet. For 3 weeks, I was invisible. No good morning, no seat at the dinner table, just a wall of cold. But this time, I wasn't a kid, with homework and a cracked phone screen. I was a woman with records, a lawyer, and a voice. They arrived 10 minutes late, as expected. My mother came in first, umbrella folded neatly, lips painted like always. Frank followed with a tired sigh, and Emily trailed behind, scrolling on her phone. Claire, Mom said, setting her purse on the counter, I'm so glad you reached out. It's good you're ready to move on from all that unpleasantness. I gestured toward the table. Please sit. They exchanged glances but obeyed. Emily chose the far chair, the one closest to the door. I invited you here, I began, because I believe in giving people a chance to explain themselves. Once Dad leaned back. Claire, if this is about money, it's about theft, I said calmly, and silence, and rewriting history. I stood and passed each of them a folder. They hesitated before opening them. Inside, bank statements, property transfers, notarized forms, and a summary of every dollar moved from the trust my grandfather left me. Transfers to Emily's businesses, sales of inherited property, my own signature on a document I never truly understood at 18. Mom's lips twitched. "This is absurd." Dad cleared his throat. "You're misinterpreting things. We were managing assets in the family's best interest." "Then why hide it?" I asked. Emily flipped through her pages, color draining from her face. "I didn't know any of this." "You didn't ask," I replied, "because it benefited you." They all started speaking at once, my mom's voice dripping with hurt, Dad's rising defensively, Emily protesting confusion. I didn't interrupt. I let the noise fill the room like steam until it clouded the windows and then began to fade. "I'm not here to argue," I said once it was quiet. "You have 48 hours. Return the inheritance with interest. Sign a written admission of wrongdoing, or Sarah will file." "File what?" Mom snapped. "You're threatening your own family?" I didn't answer. I simply slid Sarah's letter to the center of the table. Frank stood, shoulders tense. "Do you even hear yourself? This vendetta, it's tearing us apart." I looked at him, steady. "You broke it. I'm just turning on the lights." That landed. His mouth opened, then closed again. "We did everything for this family," Mom muttered. "You've never appreciated how hard we've worked to keep it all together." "You mean to keep me in the dark?" I said. Emily looked at me, her eyes glossy but unreadable. "Claire." "I didn't ask for this." "No," I said. "You just took it." The silence that followed was thicker than the rain outside. They left without saying goodbye. Mom grabbed her purse too quickly, Dad avoided my eyes, and Emily lingered at the door for a second before walking out, folder clutched tight against her chest. I stood by the window and watched them disappear into the gray afternoon. The drops against the glass blurred their figures until they were just shadows moving through mist. My pulse was steady, my hands didn't shake, and for the first time in a long while, my voice was exactly where it needed to be, mine. They missed the deadline. 48 hours came and went with no reply, no check, no apology, just silence. So I didn't miss mine. Sarah filed the paperwork on a Wednesday morning. Her tone was crisp and calm. Her email subject line read, "Filing confirmed, King County Superior Court." I stared at it for a long moment before closing my laptop and pulling on a sweater. There was nothing left to wait for. The next 2 weeks moved like a slow-moving thunderstorm, quiet rumbles followed by sharp flashes of chaos. Emily was the first to respond, not to me, but to her followers. She posted a filtered photo of herself on a hiking trail, arms spread wide, captioned, "Learning to let go of toxic energy, protecting my peace." Mom called the office where I worked 3 times in 2 days. When I didn't pick up, she showed up in person, tears already in her eyes before she reached the lobby. My coworker, Nina, intercepted her, gently but firmly. Later, Nina set a warm coffee on my desk and said, "You don't have to explain anything, but just know I've got your back." Dad sent me an email, no subject line, just a few lines of measured disappointment. "This is not how families resolve things. You've embarrassed us beyond repair." I didn't respond. Instead, I visited Rachel. Her porch was strung with soft yellow lights, the kind that looked like they belonged in a movie. She handed me a cup of ginger tea, no questions asked. Then she brought out the stack of papers we'd reviewed weeks ago. "I'm ready," she said. "Whatever they try, I'm with you." For the first time since this all began, I felt something like relief. It didn't bloom. It settled, like dust finally choosing a place to land. But the backlash kept coming. Frank tried to close one of the shared accounts Sarah had flagged. The bank froze it. Emily's studio website quietly went offline. A friend of hers leaked a text thread to a blog that covered local wellness businesses, exposing the inconsistencies in her funding and licensing. Then the police showed up, not in a dramatic way. No handcuffs, no headlines, just quiet questioning at Frank's workplace. A few days later, a reporter from the Seattle Courier called me. I didn't give them a quote. I didn't need to, because the truth was already out. I spent those weeks living simply, waking up early, cooking real meals again, walking to the bookstore on Saturdays. Nina came over some evenings with frozen pizza and crime dramas we never finished. We didn't talk much about the case. Sometimes you don't need to. The presence of someone who sees you, really sees you, is enough. One morning I walked out to my mailbox and found an envelope from the court. Inside, confirmation that restitution was approved. My name was officially cleared of all claims. The trust was being restored, plus interest. I brought the envelope inside, set it gently on the table, and made myself a cup of tea. Then I sat in the quiet of my living room, the mid-March light cutting across the floor in long yellow stripes. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat there, hands wrapped around the mug, breathing deep for what felt like the first time in years. Some victories don't come with fireworks. They come with stillness, with knowing that the worst part isn't being hurt, it's when no one believes you were. Now they had no choice but to believe me, and I had no desire to be part of their story anymore. Snow dusted the windowsill in a soft blanket, quieting the world outside. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, the scent of cinnamon and clove curling in the air as the oven ticked behind me. The same snowman mug from a year ago sat warm in my hands, filled with fresh hot chocolate. No marshmallows forgotten this time. It was Christmas morning, but this one felt different. Not just because I was in a new city or a new home, but because there was no weight pressing on my chest, no wondering who had left me out or why, no empty chairs or cold calls, just warmth and silence and peace I didn't have to earn. The doorbell rang once, soft and sure. Rachel stepped in, cheeks flushed from the cold, carrying a tin of cranberry scones and a wrapped bundle under her arm. "Merry Christmas, Claire," she said with that same voice she'd used the day she handed me the truth. "Merry Christmas," I smiled, taking her coat and guiding her into the kitchen. Nina arrived shortly after, in her usual plaid scarf and oversized mittens, carrying a bottle of apple cider and her favorite deck of vintage playing cards. We sat around the small round table I'd bought secondhand when I moved to Denver. It wasn't grand, but it held us all just fine. I'd made cinnamon rolls from scratch, messy, imperfect, drizzled with too much icing. We played cards, teased each other, and let laughter spill into the room like sunlight through the curtained windows. After brunch, Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a photo album wrapped in an old kitchen towel. "I found this while clearing out a box your grandfather left with me," she said. "I think he meant for you to have it." My fingers hesitated at the cover before flipping it open. There he was, Grandpa Don, fishing by the lake with a younger version of me, holding a popsicle stick like a fishing pole. Another photo showed him reading to me on the porch, his glasses sliding down his nose, both of us laughing. No labels, no captions, just moments. Real, quiet, unfiltered moments that didn't need anyone else's approval to mean something. I blinked back the heat in my eyes and closed the book gently. Later that afternoon, when the dishes were done and Rachel had headed home with a hug, I settled on the couch with my laptop. Nina napped in the armchair, a blanket tucked under her chin. I opened the blog draft I'd started weeks ago. Financial freedom for the forgotten daughter. It wasn't just about numbers. It was about the cost of being erased and the quiet power of writing yourself back in. I added the last line. Sometimes the best revenge isn't justice. It's freedom. I hit publish. A few minutes later, a message popped into my inbox. "I don't know you, but I needed this. Your story saved me." I stared at the screen, a soft breath leaving my lips. Not every story ends with a bow. Some just pause in the right place. I took another sip from the snowman mug and looked out the window. The snowfall had picked up again, blanketing the street in white, erasing footsteps, smoothing over the past. For once, I didn't need to chase anyone. I had arrived exactly where I was meant to be. That Christmas morning, I sat in the new kitchen, cradling a snowman-shaped ceramic mug, feeling something strangely unfamiliar. Peace. Not because someone granted it to me, but because I chose it for myself. I once thought justice was something grand, something others had to pay for, but it turns out sometimes what we need most is simply to have the truth acknowledged, that we were hurt and we deserve to move beyond it. In life, forgiveness isn't always about forgetting. Sometimes it's about refusing to let that wound define you anymore. If this story stirs something in your heart, please share your thoughts. Who knows, the truth you're holding inside might just be waiting for someone quiet enough to listen.